The human, Elias, stumbled through the thick, choking fog of the Deathworld jungle. Every step was a test. Sharp vines clawed at his arms, strange insects buzzed near his face, and the ground seemed alive with movement. The planet was unforgiving, and Elias knew he could not survive long without being careful. His suit was torn, his food almost gone, and his water supply dangerously low. Yet his mind was sharp, and his will even sharper. He had survived worse on Earth, and he would survive here. A sudden screech cut through the mist, sharp and piercing. Elias froze, scanning the trees with wide eyes. Something moved, something fast. Before he could react, a creature shot past, brushing against his shoulder. It was not large, but the sound it made would have terrified most humans. Elias barely caught his breath. Then he saw her. A girl but not human. Her skin was pale blue with streaks of dark violet, her eyes larger than any human eyes, glowing faintly in the mist. She moved with impossible speed, leaping from branch to branch with grace that reminded Elias of a predator. Yet she didn't attack. She was hurt. One of her legs was caught in a twisted vine, the sharp edges cutting into her flesh. Elias's heart pounded. Most humans would have run, but something in her eyes stopped him. She was scared, vulnerable, and alone. Despite every instinct telling him to flee, he moved closer. He whispered softly, "I won't hurt you." The girl froze, her glowing eyes narrowing. She hissed something in a language Elias could not understand. Still, he knelt and reached toward the vine, careful not to touch her. "I can help," he said. "Please." For a long moment, she just stared at him as if deciding whether he was a friend or a threat. Then, with a sudden motion, she snapped the vine free with her own strength, wincing in pain. Elias flinched but did not step back. "I can make it better," he said. He pulled out a small med kit, something he had salvaged from his crashed ship. Carefully he cleaned her wound and applied a bandage. She watched, tense but did not move away. Finally, after what felt like hours, she spoke a single word, soft and hesitant. "Eli." It was not exactly his name, but it was close enough. Elias smiled, exhausted but relieved. "Yes, that's me." From that moment, a fragile bond formed. They did not speak much. She could not speak his language well, and he could not speak hers. But actions spoke louder than words. Elias hunted for food, shared it carefully, and taught her how to avoid the deadliest creatures. In return, she guided him through the forest, showing secret paths, dangerous plants to avoid, and small safe spaces where the fog never reached. Days passed. Elias learned her name, Kayla. She was fierce and clever, moving with a skill that reminded him of a trained soldier. But beneath the sharp edges of her personality, he saw glimpses of kindness, curiosity, and trust. Kayla had lived all her life in the unforgiving wilds of Deathworld, and humans had never come close to surviving here. Yet she allowed him into her world, a silent acknowledgement that he had earned a place beside her. One evening, as the twin moons of Deathworld rose high, the jungle came alive with an eerie glow. Strange creatures crept out of the shadows, their eyes reflecting the light. Elias and Kayla sat in the hollow of a massive tree, sharing a small fire. He offered her a piece of dried fruit, and she accepted it with a cautious nod. For the first time, Elias felt something like hope. Here, in the middle of a world that could kill him in 100 different ways, he had a friend. But the peace was fragile. Deathworld had rules, harsh and merciless. Kayla's people, if they found him, would not see his actions as kindness. To them, he was an intruder, a human meddler in their world. Even Kayla, who had accepted him for now, might see his mistakes as betrayal if he misstepped. Elias understood this. Every action had weight here. Every small gesture could become a spark for a fire he did not intend. Still, he did not regret helping her. Survival on Deathworld required strength, cunning, and courage. But it also required something more: understanding, empathy, and respect for life, even for creatures who seemed impossible to trust. And Elias had all of that. As he lay beside the small fire that night, Kayla watching the shadows with wary eyes, Elias made a quiet promise to himself. He would survive this world no matter the cost. And he would protect Kayla, the only friend he had in this alien hell. Even if the entire Deathworld turned against him, he would not abandon her. Little did he know that promise, that bond, would soon be tested in ways he could not imagine. A single mistake, a single misunderstanding could turn friendship into a deadly hunt. But for now they rested. Two unlikely allies on a planet that would not forgive weakness. And Elias felt, for the first time since he landed, that he was not alone. The morning sun barely cut through the thick mist of Deathworld. Elias woke with the chill of the alien air on his skin. Kayla was already awake, crouched on a high branch, scanning the forest below. Her glowing eyes flicked in every direction, alert and cautious. Elias rubbed his eyes and stretched. The previous day's hunt had left him tired, but he knew he needed to stay alert. This world did not forgive weakness. "Kayla," he said softly, "where are we going today?" She made a low, clicking sound, which Elias had come to understand as her way of saying, "Follow me." He nodded and carefully moved through the twisted roots and slippery moss, keeping low. They were heading toward the heart of a dense jungle, a place Elias had learned to avoid at first. The air was thick with humidity, and strange noises echoed from every direction. Kayla led him to a shallow clearing where alien plants grew in tight circles, their leaves sharp as knives. At the center of the clearing stood a cluster of carved stones, old and worn by time. Elias stopped, noticing markings on the stones, symbols that pulsed faintly with light. "What is this place?" he asked. Kayla's body stiffened. She gestured toward the stones, then toward Elias, then pointed sharply at the sky. Elias frowned. He didn't understand, but he could sense the warning. These stones were sacred, important to her people. He knew he had to be careful. He stepped forward, trying not to touch the glowing symbols. "I mean no harm," he said quietly. Kayla's tail flicked nervously. She hissed, a sound of anger and caution. Elias froze. He didn't know if she was warning him or preparing to attack. As he studied the stones, he accidentally brushed against a nearby plant. It made a soft, crackling noise. Kayla's eyes flared with light. She let out a sharp, piercing cry. Elias instinctively stepped back, but it was too late. Kayla had moved closer, her claws digging into the ground, ready to strike. "Wait!" Elias shouted. "I didn't mean it. I didn't touch anything important." Kayla's ears twitched. She hissed again, her glowing eyes narrowing. Elias realized she was not just angry, she felt betrayed. In her culture, humans could not be trusted. She had believed his earlier kindness was real, but this was different. He had crossed an invisible line he did not understand. Elias raised his hands in surrender. "Kayla, please. I'm your friend." Her gaze softened for a moment, just enough for him to see a flicker of hesitation. But the moment passed. With a sudden burst of speed, she leaped away, disappearing into the thick fog. Elias swallowed hard. He knew what this meant. Kayla was leaving, but not peacefully. This was the start of something dangerous. He hurried after her, keeping low, using everything he had learned about her movement. He could see the fear in her stride now, not just for him but for the consequences of what she had decided. Her people, her clan, they would not forgive what she saw as a human mistake. Elias realized he had stepped into something much larger than the two of them. Hours passed. Elias followed Kayla silently, careful to avoid predators and the deadly plants that could pierce his skin. He thought about what he had done. He had only brushed against a plant, yet it had triggered a chain reaction he did not understand. On Deathworld, rules were written in survival and death, not in words. One wrong move and the consequences were real. Kayla paused at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a valley filled with jagged rock formations. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. She was breathing hard, her body tense. Elias approached slowly, raising his hands. "Kayla, I promise I didn't mean any disrespect. You know I would never hurt you." She did not respond. Instead, she turned and leaped across the gap to the next cliff. Elias followed, calculating every step. He had survived deadly predators and extreme storms, but he realized now that the greatest danger was not the creatures of the planet. It was the alien who had once been his friend. As night fell, Elias set up a small camp at the edge of a ravine. He could see Kayla moving above him, silent and watchful. He did not sleep. He did not dare. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow could mean danger. Yet even as he felt fear, he also felt determination. He would not let this misunderstanding destroy the bond they had formed. Humans were clever, resourceful, and courageous. He would find a way to fix this, he had to. The wind shifted, carrying strange scents of alien flora and the distant cries of predators. Elias listened carefully, remembering every lesson Deathworld had taught him. He thought about how he had saved Kayla, how he had shared food and knowledge, and how she had guided him through the deadliest parts of the jungle. All of it mattered. All of it could not be lost because of one mistake. Deep in the fog, he saw her silhouette again. She was waiting, watching him, her stance ready for attack. Elias understood now that Kayla's anger was more than personal. It was about honor, culture, and the consequences of her world. But he also saw an opening. If he could understand her, if he could show her courage and honesty, he might survive this. He swallowed his fear. "Kayla," he whispered into the mist, "I will not run. I will face this. Together or apart, I will not fail you." For a long moment the jungle was silent. Only the distant roar of unseen creatures filled the night. Elias knew this was just the beginning. Kayla's vengeance had been triggered, and now the human friend had to prove that even on a death world humanity could survive, not just with strength but with courage, cleverness, and heart. And so the hunt began. The jungle was alive with sound. Every snap of a branch, every rustle of leaves made Elias tense. Kayla was close, moving faster than any human could, her glowing eyes cutting through the thick fog. He had known her as a friend, but now she was hunting him, driven by anger and the strict codes of her people. He could not fight her directly, he would be dead in seconds. He had to rely on his mind. Humans survived by thinking, by finding ways where strength alone could not protect them. He dropped low, hiding among the twisted roots and giant ferns. Kayla leaped overhead, landing silently, her gaze scanning for him. Elias pressed his back against a tree, holding his breath. His heart pounded, but his mind worked fast. He remembered the climbing vines he had used before, the small caves he had discovered, and the sharp rocks that could be turned into traps. Deathworld was deadly, yes, but he had learned to use it to his advantage. Kayla hissed and clicked, her frustration clear. Elias knew she was clever, but every creature had limits. He quietly picked up a few heavy stones and a thick vine, setting a simple trap. He ducked behind a fallen log as Kayla approached, her eyes scanning the fog. When she stepped onto the ground where he had hidden the vine, the stones shifted, making a loud crash. Kayla froze, startled, and Elias used the chance to slip behind her, keeping low. He ran through the narrow paths he had memorized, leaping over roots and ducking under hanging branches. Kayla followed, faster than him, but he had set more distractions: broken branches, fallen leaves, and even a small pool of water he had disturbed to make noise in the opposite direction. She snarled and hissed, frustrated, and Elias allowed himself a small grin. Humans were clever. Survival was not just about strength, it was about thinking ahead, using the world itself as a weapon. Hours passed. Elias moved quickly, but he also had to rest. The jungle was tiring and the constant tension burned his energy. He found a high ledge overlooking a valley filled with glowing mushrooms. He paused, catching his breath, and looked down. Kayla was still below, scanning every inch of the forest. He knew she would not give up. Not easily. But he had a plan. Humans could survive even against creatures stronger, faster, and more dangerous than themselves, if they stayed smart. Elias gathered some vines and set them across the narrow path ahead. He bent low and placed stones that would fall with the slightest touch. Kayla stepped onto the path, her glowing eyes flashing with anger and determination. She moved carefully, aware of traps, but Elias had hidden the stones in the most unpredictable spots. One slipped, clattering loudly, and Kayla spun, alert. Elias took the chance to run across a narrow branch over a ravine, barely keeping his balance. Below him, Kayla hissed, her frustration echoing in the mist. He knew she was strong, faster, and deadly, but she was not perfect. Humans could win by patience, by reading patterns, by using creativity and courage. He had survived storms, predators, and alien creatures before. Now he was surviving against someone who had once trusted him. And he would not fail. The chase led him to a field of strange plants with glowing spines. He ducked low, weaving between them, careful not to touch. Kayla followed, her eyes bright with focus, but the glow of the plants gave Elias an idea. He knocked a few of the spines loose, creating a dazzling display of light. Kayla paused, confused, and Elias slipped into a hidden crevice he had discovered days earlier. The darkness hid him, his chest heaving, his mind racing. Kayla hissed again, circling the area. Elias watched her through the shadows. He knew this chase could not go on forever. He needed to find a way to reach her mind, to show her he was not a threat. But for now, survival came first. He prepared another trap, using vines and stones to create noise in the opposite direction, drawing her away just long enough for him to escape further. Humans survived by thinking, by planning, by using every advantage, even when the odds were impossible. Night fell and the jungle became darker, more dangerous. Predators moved quietly and the air grew thick with mist. Elias knew he could not hide forever. Kayla was relentless and every mistake could be fatal. But he also knew that he had something she did not: human ingenuity, courage, and the will to survive. He had survived worse than this. He would survive this. As he paused to catch his breath, Elias thought of Kayla not as an enemy but as a test. She had once trusted him. She had once been his friend. Now she challenged him in a way no wild animal ever could. Humans thrived against impossible odds because they could adapt, learn, and never give up. He would find a way to reach her, to prove himself, to survive not just physically but morally and mentally. The jungle whispered around him, filled with unseen eyes and strange noises. Elias crouched low, vines in hand, eyes scanning for movement. Kayla was out there, hunting, relentless, dangerous. But he was not afraid. Humans survived by thinking, by acting, by refusing to be beaten even when everything seemed impossible. And Elias would prove that, even on the deadly Deathworld, humanity could endure, could fight back, and could find a way to win, even against someone who had once been a friend. Elias crept through the foggy jungle, his heart pounding with every step. Kayla's glowing eyes had been watching him for hours, and he knew she would not hesitate to strike. The forest seemed alive with danger. Vines shifted as if reaching for him, and strange insects buzzed close to his face. But Elias kept moving, steady and careful. He could feel the weight of the chase pressing down on him. This was no longer a simple survival test. This was about trust, about friendship, about proving that humans could stand firm even in impossible situations. Ahead, the trees opened into a wide clearing. Moonlight reflected off a small stream cutting through the center. Elias stepped lightly, scanning the shadows. And there she was, Kayla, crouched on a rock, her tail coiled behind her, claws digging into the stone. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, and her body was tense, ready to attack. But this time she was not moving. She was waiting. Elias took a deep breath. He knew he could not outrun her, and fighting her directly would be suicide. He had to rely on something stronger than brute strength. Humans survived by thinking, by reading their opponents, and by using understanding and courage. Slowly he stepped into the clearing, hands raised slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Kayla," he said softly, his voice carrying across the mist. "I know you're angry. I know I made a mistake. But I never wanted to hurt you." Kayla's ears twitched and she hissed softly. Her glowing eyes narrowed, but for the first time since the misunderstanding she did not attack. Elias took a cautious step forward, letting the moonlight fall on him. He thought about everything they had shared, the hunts, the hidden paths, the moments of trust. He knew he had to show her not just words but courage. "I survived here," he said. "I survived storms, predators, even this planet itself. But none of that matters if I cannot fix what I've done with you. I won't run. I won't hide. I will face this, Kayla. Because humans stand for something more than fear. We stand for honesty, courage, and protecting those we care about." Kayla tilted her head as if considering his words. Her tail flicked nervously and she stepped down from the rock, keeping her distance. Elias could see her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was torn between her anger and the bond they had once shared. Humans survived impossible odds because they understood trust, and Elias was offering her that trust openly. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the clearing. A large predator, a Deathworld beast with armored skin and razor claws, emerged from the fog. It roared, shaking the ground. Kayla's eyes widened and instinct took over. She moved to strike. Elias acted instantly. He grabbed a nearby branch and swung it, not to harm but to startle the creature, buying time. He leapt toward Kayla, shouting, "Together!" For a moment the predator hesitated, surprised by the coordinated action. Kayla froze, her instincts clashing with the memory of their bond. Elias could see the hesitation in her eyes. He seized it, using his voice and calm courage to reach her. "Kayla, we survived together. I trust you. Don't let anger blind you." Kayla's body tensed, then slowly relaxed. She hissed again, but this time it was not aggression. It was confusion, doubt, and something else. Recognition. Recognition of the human's courage. Recognition of the truth in his words. With a swift movement, she joined him, and together they forced the predator back with careful strikes and evasive maneuvers. It roared one final time and retreated into the fog. Breathing heavily, Elias lowered the branch. He looked at Kayla. Her glowing eyes softened and she took a cautious step closer. I thought you betrayed me," she said in halting words he could understand. "I made a mistake," Elias admitted. "But I never betrayed you. I would never betray a friend. Humans survive here not because we are the strongest, but because we face what we must with courage and care. Even when the odds are against us, we do what is right." Kayla studied him silently. The tension in her body slowly eased. She had come close to vengeance, but she saw now that Elias's words were true. He had faced danger not with anger but with bravery. He had survived challenges she could not even imagine, and he had shown empathy and understanding, even when she had tried to hunt him. Finally, Kayla nodded. You are human, she said simply. Not as an insult but as acknowledgement. She had seen the courage and resourcefulness of humans firsthand, and she could not deny it. Elias smiled, exhausted but triumphant. I am, he said quietly. And I will stand by my friends. No matter what. For the first time since their bond was tested, Kayla allowed herself to trust him again. She stepped fully into the clearing, her body relaxed, her glowing eyes now calm. The tension between them eased like fog in the morning sun. Elias knew this was more than survival. It was respect, recognition, and a fragile trust rebuilt through courage and honesty. In the dangerous heart of Deathworld, two unlikely allies stood together. The human had faced anger, betrayal, and danger, and through courage and cleverness he had survived, not just physically but morally. He had proven that humans could endure, even against impossible odds, and that sometimes the greatest strength was the heart and mind, not claws or speed. Kayla gave a soft hiss, almost like a sigh, and Elias knew this confrontation was over. The hunt had ended, but the bond was stronger than ever. Humans had survived Deathworld, not just by fighting but by showing what it truly meant to be human. And in that moment, under the twin moons and glowing fog, Elias felt something he had not felt since leaving Earth: hope. The first light of dawn touched the Deathworld jungle, spilling through the thick fog and illuminating the twisted trees. Elias stood at the edge of the clearing, watching Kayla move silently among the glowing plants. She was no longer tense or aggressive, her glowing eyes now reflected curiosity, even respect. He felt a strange mix of relief and pride. He had survived the hunt, proved his courage, and now had her trust again. But he also knew that survival on Deathworld was never simple. One wrong step could undo everything. Kayla turned toward him, her gaze steady. For the first time, Elias saw something he had not expected: recognition. She understood that he had faced the jungle, the predators, and her anger, and still stood firm. Not because he was stronger, not because he was faster, but because he was human. Humans endured through courage, cleverness, and heart. Kayla began, her voice halting. I almost finished it. I almost took vengeance. Elias shook his head slowly. You didn't. You hesitated. That hesitation saved us both. Kayla, humans survive by thinking, by understanding, by standing firm even when it seems impossible. I made a mistake, but I never betrayed you. Her tail flicked thoughtfully. She lowered herself to the ground, closer to him than ever before. You are different from others. My people, they would have destroyed you immediately. Elias smiled faintly. I know. That's why I learned, Kayla. I learned your ways, your dangers, and I respected them. Humans survive by adapting. We survive by learning, by understanding, by standing for something more than ourselves. Kayla studied him silently, her glowing eyes softening. She finally spoke, words slow and careful. Perhaps humans are not weak. Perhaps they are worth trust. Elias felt a warmth in his chest. He had survived impossible odds, faced an enemy stronger than any predator, and won not through strength but through courage and understanding. On a world designed to kill, humanity had endured. He had proven that humans were more than fragile beings. They were clever, brave, and capable of shaping the outcome of even alien worlds. The jungle around them stirred. A pack of Deathworld predators appeared on the edge of the clearing, drawn by the scent of movement. Kayla's eyes flashed, ready to fight. Elias stepped forward. We faced them together, he said firmly. We survived together. Kayla hesitated but then nodded. She had seen his courage, his resourcefulness, his willingness to face danger without fear. Together they used the terrain to their advantage. Elias led Kayla across narrow paths, over glowing plants and through thick vines. He used his knowledge of traps and environmental tactics to confuse the predators, guiding Kayla without words. The predators hesitated at every turn, their confusion giving Elias and Kayla the edge. When one lunged too close, Elias threw a sharp rock, causing it to stumble into another, and Kayla struck with precision, using her speed to drive them back. Within minutes, the predators retreated, and the clearing was quiet once again. Kayla looked at Elias, her expression unreadable at first. Then she spoke, softly but clearly. You are worthy. You have survived Deathworld where others would die. You have my respect. Elias nodded. Thank you, Kayla. But this is just the beginning. Survival is not enough. Humans leave marks. We endure, we adapt, and we change the world around us. Even here, even now, we make a difference. Kayla's eyes flicked to the glowing forest. Your people, You are clever, strong, and different. Perhaps there is more than we knew about humans. Elias smiled. He had expected to survive, but he had not expected this. Trust, respect, and even admiration from a native of the Deathworld, a being faster, stronger, and more lethal than any human, was a reward no ordinary survival could bring. He realized something essential: humans were more than survivors. Humans could inspire, could teach, and could earn respect in worlds far beyond Earth. Suddenly, Kayla leapt onto a rock, scanning the horizon. Elias followed, curious. In the distance, he saw faint movements, members of her clan, patrolling the forest. He tensed. He expected hostility. But Kayla stepped forward, moving confidently toward them. She gestured to Elias, and for the first time she introduced him, not as a stranger, not as an intruder, but as an ally. Her clan stared, confused at first. Elias could feel their eyes on him, judging, measuring. But Kayla's stance was firm. She had chosen to vouch for him. Humans had survived Deathworld, but now humans had earned a place in their story. Elias stood tall, shoulders back, breathing steady. He did not falter. He had faced danger, anger, and impossible odds, and he had proven that humans could endure anything through courage, cleverness, and heart. The clan stepped back, murmuring among themselves. Elias could not understand their language, but he felt their respect. Kayla had given him that gift. And he understood something more: humans survived not just because they were clever, but because they dared to stand firm, to face fear with courage, and to act with honor even when the world tried to crush them. As the twin moons rose above the Deathworld jungle, Elias and Kayla stood side by side. The fog swirled around them, but neither feared it. They had faced impossible odds, conquered anger, and proven that humans could survive and thrive where no one expected them to. And for the first time since he arrived on Deathworld, Elias smiled freely. Humanity had survived, not just by brute strength but by courage, intelligence, and heart. The jungle whispered around them, alive and dangerous, but he knew one truth: humans would endure no matter the world, no matter the challenge, and no one, even a Deathworld girl, could deny their strength. The hunt was over. The lesson was clear. Humans were not just survivors. They were worthy of respect, capable of courage, and able to change even the deadliest world through their will and heart.